Hello, everyone. I'm Paige.
And I'm Ashlyn.
Together, we are the co founders of Love Ignites Peace.
Welcome to Love Ignites Peace Bathtub Chats Book Club Edition.
Every other month, we read a self help book that inspires personal growth.
You can read the book along with us, or you can simply just listen in and gain personal insights through the conversation. And then decide if you want to read the book or not after.
Today, we are looking back at our year in review, sharing our favorite books, our biggest takeaways, and the ideas that stayed with us long after the last page. This year has been full of personal growth and lots of insights.
We chose our books a little differently this year to make the experience more personal. Each of us chose a book that has helped us get our personal freak, aka frequency, on. Books that have shaped our thinking, contributed to our personal growth, or shifted our energy in a meaningful way.
Ashlyn, whose motto this year is that the life of her dreams is the reality of her life, chose Atomic Habits by James Clear. She has not previously read this one, but knew that it would help her achieve her dreams. This book was just the right choice for her.
Teresa, our spiritual guru and always say yes gal, chose The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Teresa has long loved this book and spent months taking a group through the powerful information contained in its small number of pages, and she knew its wisdom needed to be shared with you all too.
Jenna, the big-hearted, ever-curious learner, chose Let Them by Mel Robbins. She had not previously read this one, but when her mom sent it to her in the mail to help her with her challenging interpersonal relationships, we all just jumped in feet first.
Noelle, a deeply heart-centered educator and brilliant teacher of emotional intelligence, chose The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. This was one of Noelle's first big impact books on her self-growth journey. And Paige, award-winning author and teacher of love and action, chose her book, Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution, by special request from us, the book club. This book was published officially in May of this year and has been a beautiful part of our journey. Learning to live the Love Ignites Peace message and writing about it and creating Love 6 actions were the ultimate get your freak, aka frequency, on for Paige.
It's been a powerful year of reading, reflecting, and evolving together. Let's jump right in today, ladies. Share a story about how one or more of the books have connected with your life this past year.
Well, I'll jump in and go. I don't have oh my God, I've created a new way to do something. But I will tell you, with my work environment, we have a weekly, they call it a vetting meeting, and they've opened it up to all the merchant owners. So it's every week we go in, it's very business oriented. And I have used a little bit of each section of each one of these books consciously in the meeting. Paige, your Love 6 actions. I kind of go over each of those. It sets my tone. The 4 agreements I try to live every day. Again, I set it, I re-say it, and I'm able to put it into layman's terms during the meeting. And here's how you know when people are listening. They write it down and they'll re-say it at a future meeting. Words matter, things like that. So that's how reading each of these books, Atomic Habit, each one, I really have tried to pull a thread out and sewed it into the fabric of my everyday life to be mindful and live in consciousness with certain parts of the book. So for me personally, in a business environment, all of the books have been very, very helpful for me. So thank you, each of you, for each one that you selected, because they've been very, very, very helpful to me.
I think that's so cool. It's like the books are making an impact on you, and then you are taking that impact and taking it out into the world. That's amazing.
When people listen, I'm sure Noelle gets that feedback when she does such a beautiful job with her programs and using these things and talking to the kids, and they respond. There's nothing better when they get it. And you know people are listening because it's your way of life. What's that saying? When you walk the talk. And I think that's what we're doing. So thank you. It's been good books. I really enjoyed them.
I have a twofold answer. So my first one would be just awareness of the subconscious, which technically wasn't really a part of one of the books until the end of the year page. That was a big theme in Love Ignites Peace, The Next Evolution, but we didn't read that until most recently. And I thought about this answer for a while, and I think I could really dig deep here at this point. But since we just talked about that last week, I'm going to give a part 2 answer, but I did want to mention that because I do really believe that that was a huge life-changing part of my year. We talked about this on the last podcast, but Ashlyn actually did a subconscious transformation session with me that was several hours long right before my wedding. And seriously, I mean, it was life changing. I can tell you that I wouldn't have had the same experience or wouldn't be the same person without that. So I'm excited to continue that work. And Ashlyn, I kind of have a feeling you're really going to relate on this one, but Atomic Habits really left an imprint on me this year for a lot of reasons. But I think the reason that I feel like it was so impactful is because I feel like for me, it became really the foundation of my year and was able to really unlock a lot of freedom and peace by putting structures and routines in place to free up twofold. One, to put into action the things that bring me peace and build a routine around that. So, starting to work out in the morning, I've always been consistent on my workout routine, but starting to work out in the morning, which Ashlyn, you inspired me to do that, sets a great tone for the day. Journaling in the evening, having that as a routine before I go to bed, setting aside some time to meditate. That one I still really need to put in my routine more, but doing all of those things are like the actions that evoke peace in my life. And this was really my goal for the year. And it was actually my same goal in 2024. And if I look back at journal entries, this has been a goal of mine for many years. But I think you can't be complacent. You have to like action precedes motivation. And so, kind of just getting some of these steps into your routine and into your life gives you that routine for enabling peace, but then also gives you more time for just spontaneity and enjoying the little things in life. So, for me, it really is that foundational piece that without that and without getting some of those structures in place, there's almost like too much chaos in my mind and my life to actually get to the juicy good stuff of that piece that I want to feel. So for me, it was really, really a good kind of formative book that set the tone for the year.
I'm going to tag off of that because, of course, my favorite, most impactful book from the year for me was Atomic Habits. And I want to build on what Jenna said because I think everything just absolutely nailed it. The freedom that's come from putting that into place, the actual ways that you can actually change your life. And one thing I want to add on that is it also alleviated guilt in my life. So he talks about how, we don't fall to our goals, we fall to our structures. And it's not because we're lazy and it's not because we're unmotivated. And it's not because we're not enough. It's because it's actually how our primal brains are wired. We're wired for the quick fix. When you go back to, you're staying alive in the woods, right? You're not looking at this long-term goal. You're trying to get what's going to provide the satisfaction and the safety in this exact second. So that gave me a lot of freedom from guilt and understanding that, like, as I work over and over and over to achieve a goal and to stay consistent in my routines, I'm not a failure for messing up one day. And he talks about that, right? Like, it's okay to miss one day, but you can't miss two. And so there were just so many good nuggets. And I think it set the tone of our year so, so, so well to start the year with that book. And truly, it has changed my life fundamentally. And now I just feel like I am a ninja. Every day I feel like I text my mom, I'm like, I'm a ninja. I'm a ninja. I'm like, I was up at 5 and I did this and I did that. It's just grown. So I would encourage anybody that's feeling even intimidated or hasn't started to really consider that for the beginning of their next year and know that it can build. It's one small step at a time. But yeah, that book truly changed my life. 10 out of 10.
I just want to add, though, too, as a nod to you, Ashlyn, is I think the dialogue around the book also was really impactful because I don't know if I had read that book outside of the context of this book club that I would have taken away as much as I did. I know one of the conversations we initially had was that some of the tone can be interpreted as a little hustle culture-y and like go, 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 achieve your goals. And I think that's probably how I would have interpreted it and maybe put it into function, not had this amazing conversation, but hearing how you implemented it into your life, I was then able to take that and do something similar. And it was so far removed from, I honestly didn't have any like crazy, smart goals for my personal life this year, like the specific measurable, like that wasn't the nature of my year this year. I just wanted to enjoy and have peace. I was planning a wedding, and I still found so much value because of how you interpreted the book and then how I could then implement it into my life. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I agree. Like the conversation was so good. And I think we really walked away from implementing here's a how to, but also here's how to give grace through the growth. It's always about the lens of perception, and I always appreciate the different perceptions and perspectives that are shared here. So part of listening to the book club and being part of it, right? That's the whole point. So I love that call out.
I can't wait to hear what Noelle says. And I'm fairly sure that Noelle is not going to say Atomic Habits was her favorite. And here we have one of those where, listeners, Ashlyn and Jenna are in their late 20s, early 30s. So the age gap then is about probably 25 years between them and starting with the rest of us. So it is just fascinating to me. And I think it's something we should always keep in mind. Where you are in your life is always a big determinant of how these books are landing.
Interestingly enough, though, I think Atomic Habits has had an impact in your life this year.
I don't think so. Why do you think that?
Because I think that you've stepped up on some habits that maybe you wouldn't have. I don't know.
Well, if I have, it's been a subconscious thing because I haven't consciously thought, I'm going to go do what Atomic Habits said.
That's funny.
Okay, that is funny because as both of you were talking about atomic habits, I started thinking about how maybe there's a subconscious level to it that maybe has at least impacted me. I can only speak for me. But the other books that we read were more, they were less tangible items versus atomic habits were felt more go, go, go. The others seemed more an internal process, but that also we can raise our frequency by those little internal habits that happen, like changing up the way we view the world by remembering the four agreements, by our interactions with ourselves and others through the untethered soul, the work in the untethered soul, using Love Ignites Peace, the next evolution, the steps for looking at ourselves and others through that lens of love by looking at everything through Love's 6 actions. All of those, embodying those are all small habits that we have to build. We can learn all we want and gain information in our mind, but if we don't embody it, it doesn't really matter. It's just words. But the actions and becoming one with who we want to be, all of those are little teeny tiny habits that we build in. So I do think that is maybe the foundation. The Atomic Habits is the foundation of everything else. Even let them the same idea. That's an internal way of showing up. But we have to build the habits that create an embodiment of those. I guess that kind of sums up maybe a little bit how those things have impacted me this year. I really am trying to build an awareness around how I interact with myself and how I interact with the world. But I did love 6 actions. I talked about it last time, so I won't talk too much this time. But, I built that process that I work with kids. I wish I got to use it more, but I'm not always involved in when challenges arrive in their lives. It's not always me that brings it back and creates some kind of the full circle where we can repair relationships. But when I do get the opportunity, that's the work that I use. So I'm really excited about that.
At some point, Noelle, we're going to have just you on the podcast, and we are going to interview you about how you are bringing Love 6 actions into these behavioral challenges with children. I honestly can't wait to have that conversation. But we'll save that for another podcast. And I actually think your insight is so interesting about the atomic habits and the other things. Atomic habits to me felt so like achieve more, achieve more, achieve more. And it's a beautiful insight to say it doesn't have to be that way. We're changing habits. How do we make some of these internal transformative things part of our daily habits? And I think that's huge. Yeah, that was a really cool insight. My story of how everything would have connected for me this year, how one book really connected with me for this year was Untethered Soul. And I actually never thought I would say that because I started reading that book, 5 years ago and thought, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get through this thing? And it was somewhere on an airplane between Greece and Italy. And I started reading chapter 6 of Untethered Soul, where he starts talking about how all of the energy we just hold in our heart, it becomes a blockage in our hearts. And from our thousands of tiny conversations where we walk away feeling like we're not enough or we're not worthy, or our hundreds of little moments where we step back and say, oh, gosh, I did something wrong or I'm bad or I shouldn't have done it that way. So the big traumas that shake up our lives, that energy becomes stuck in our hearts because we don't allow it to flow through. Well, what does that cause? That causes limitation and resistance. And somewhere at like 35,000 feet flying over the Ionian Sea, I had this gigantic moment of, oh my gosh, Paige, how are you still holding on? Even though I've done so much work, but how are you still holding on to things that have caused you to be limited in your life and how you show up in the world? And where is that causing resistance? What are you resisting? How are you resisting showing up in the world and doing what you're supposed to be doing? And that one moment for me was like the whole icing on the cake of the entire book club year for me. It was just such a powerful moment. And then I spent weeks working on creating subconscious transformation clearings to help me move through those limitations. And I became hyper aware, and Ashlyn really helps me with this as well, where I'm resisting things. She is always happy to bring that to my attention, especially when it's something she wants me to do.
I'm just here to help Paigey live the most unlimited life possible. And I have an ear for her limitations. It's like a little alarm bell goes off. It's like ding, and I'm like, oh, hello. Might I illuminate this for you?
Hashtag blessed.
So the next question is, ask your younger self, what do I wish that I knew then that I've learned from reading one or more of the books this year? What do you wish your younger self knew from one of the books from this year?
I'm just going to jump right in because I'm right here and I already know what my answer is to that. I've given that a little thought. I really think that from the four agreements, don't take it personally. And really, honestly, from Let Them, which really wasn't one of my favorite books this year, but the message is powerful, even though it's such a simple message. Just let them. I could have saved myself 50 years, 60, almost 60 years of problems and trauma and hurt feelings if I had just followed that advice.
Mine is from The Untethered Soul, which is just the idea that you're not your thoughts, you're just the observer in them, of them. I think in the past, and I mean, even still today, I've tied a lot of my value and maybe even morality to my thoughts. And I think it's a great imagery too, and just a great concept of just being able to take a step back and be an observer of your thoughts. We are not our minds. We're bigger than that. We're greater than that. And so kind of step back from that rabbit hole of thought spirals we can get into and know that we're simply an observer.
For me, I would say it's two books, but I think they're so connected in this one thing. One is Let Them, and the other one would come from the Four Agreements, Don't Take It Personally. They're the same. Technically, I think they're the same. So going back, boy, how amazingly free our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical embodiments would be at a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 15-year old having don't take it personally and then let them. They really do, I think, like Jenna and Paige, they really are the same thing, just worded differently. And I think there is great freedom. There's freedom in work, freedom in family relationships, freedom with yourself when you become the observer of self and you don't take it personally, you're observing it, it changes everything. So that would be my thread of those.
Noah's smiling, so I'm curious. Noelle is also on that line.
Actually, it's the same exact thing because Paige said the same thing. And as Teresa. And again, I wonder if that's a generational piece. I don't know. But first, I want to say I wouldn't tell my younger self to do anything different. And I know I say that every time, but I'm really so grateful for every thread and every experience that I've had that has led me to be the person I am today. And today will lead to who I am tomorrow. But I would really not change a thing. But with that being said, with the question, it would be let them and don't take anything personally because they are the same exact thing, just written differently. And one gives more information and more examples about it, but they mean the same thing. And that is really a gift for all of us And then really, really, if I cannot, everyone that's listening to this, if you can do anything at all, let people be people and don't take anything personally because it is not about you. I promise.
It's so funny because drum roll, mine is also the third agreement in the 4 agreements. Don't take anything personally. And I really just think about like kind of kneeling down and talking to like my little 12-year-old self. And I wanted to read this quick quote, which says, it's on page 45, the 4 agreements. And he writes, as you make a habit of not taking anything personally, you won't need to place your trust in what others do or say. You will only need to trust yourself to make responsible choices. You are never responsible for the actions of others. You are only responsible for you. When you truly understand this and refuse to take things personally, you can hardly be hurt by the careless comments or actions of others. Because, gosh, what is middle school and high school? And even somewhat of college, right? So many
Yes.
careless thoughts, comments, actions, and they have the power to be so hurtful if you put the weight behind them, if you take them personally, if you internalize them. When the reality is, if you could just tell that sweet little young girl or guy, don't take it personally, and help them really understand that it's not just a flippant comment of like, oh, don't worry about it, don't take it personally, but like, no, deeply like, it's not about you. And that takes some maturity to understand. But yeah, that was also mine. Kind of fun that we had so many of the similar ones. And Jenna, I love yours. Like, I think that's another really good one. You are not your thoughts, you're the observer of your thoughts. And I think that's also groundbreaking and has definitely been something we've discussed over and over and over throughout the year. And even being able to put them to the side of like, okay, I hear you, but that's not me. Thank you.
And can't you see the relationship between all 3 of those? Because our thoughts are what cause us to like connect to what somebody says. But when you can stand out back and observe them, you are not taking anything personally because those thoughts aren't you. Often they're some historical something that you're hanging on to, something you've heard somewhere else.
Yeah. Something somebody else said, or yeah.
And I want to really give a really high shout out on that about going back to that middle school time and jumping over to Noel. There's not a lot in my life I would go back. Oh, I would change because I really do like who I am now. But having the information of don't take it personally and or let them, however it's worded, to have an understanding, like you said, Ashlyn, in middle school, holy cow, not that it would change a whole lot of outcome, but it changes that mental awareness of who we are in that moment, that the littlest of words can destroy someone. Look what's happening from social media when things are said and taken personally. So I would highly recommend the 4 agreements, definitely in a middle school age, and to read it. It will empower that young person to have those words are not really who you are that someone says. So I really appreciate that you tied that into that age group, Ashlyn.
And it ties into Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution as well, because she talks about the little T's and the big T traumas. And imagine if you could have the third agreement that would help you keep from creating a little T or a big T trauma because of the beliefs and the meaning you're assigning to the situation that happened, which is so much of then, again, Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution is diving into the meaning that we've put behind all of these things and unpacking it, but with a more strategic lens of here's 6 steps to now unpack this thing that you've taken personally and internalized and turn into a big T or a little T trauma. So very cool how this is all going together.
I can't wait to see how you and Jenna part this knowledge to your children.
I'm like bookmarking, oh, like remember to have this book read. Like remember this book. I need to start a parenting note in my notes app.
You know, even in the conversations that you can have with your kids, and I can see Noelle. I mean, Noelle, jump in. You probably have these conversations every single day, but, you know, having them be able to tell you about something that happened and then be able to help them go through that process of not taking it personally and that it wasn't really about them. I mean, those are conversations I never even thought to have with my kids when they were little. And I'm so sad. I'm so sorry.
You know, it is funny you said that though. I was thinking that what you did in part is that, first of all, we created a habit, going back to Atomic Habits, is we always read before bedtime.
We did.
So, first of all, I think having that habit then allows you at some point to weave in maybe a book that has a little bit more of a lesson or something like that versus trying to out of nowhere be like, okay, now we're going to read this book on these 4 agreements and you're 12 and I hope you're going to have fun with this. Like, first of all, the habit. And then second of all, you did start reading to us during our Sunday morning stuff in middle school. We would read Reader's Digest and we would read just stories, guidepost stories of random acts of kindness and being a good person. And I've shared this multiple times, but that was such a foundational piece of my life, I believe, in who made me who I am. Because those 2 years that we did what we called at home church, which was just my mom, my dad, my brother, and I sitting around, and they would curate basically this morning where we would learn something, right? We'd read a story of kindness from one of those publications I just mentioned, or we would read something from the Bible, or we would, wherever we're pulling it. And then we'd also set goals. So we'd be like, okay, what's your goal for the week for the planet? How are you going to be better to the earth? How are you, so for me, I used a towel every single day, my hair and my body, and I'd put it in the wash. So by the end of the week, right here, Ashland Page Prendergast, sponsor of one single load of towels.
Maybe 2.
Maybe 2. Okay, so I remember that, right? I remember being like, okay, my goal for the week now is going to be to reuse my towel all week. But it created a consciousness in me about how I engage with the world and other people and the impact of performing a random act of kindness for someone. And so I can absolutely tell you that, first of all, you did do that. So don't beat yourself up. You did create that. But second of all, for those listening, if you do have anybody in that age range, it really is powerful. Like, it is life-changing. I think foundationally it set me up so well to be the person that I am today.
I love that.
I was a CCD teacher for many years for my 3 kids. I wish I would have been aware of the 4 agreements. Maybe it wasn't even written when Jennifer was born. That's how old I am. But had that book been available, I would have incorporated it in our lessons with CCD because they're so basic and so human and built on awareness and kindness and to yourself. So I would have loved to have had that at that time for that group of kids, let alone my own.
I think that's so sweet what you said, Ashlyn, and I totally agree with this knowledge being imparted on children and how powerful that would be. I will add that I think some of this is also, I mean, I remember, Ashlyn, you know this, but my dad has told me since I was a little kid, like, people throw rocks at things that shine. Like, anytime someone was like mean to me at school or anything. So that's like a mantra that's like in the back of my head, and that Taylor Swift song about it that we used to listen to in the living room. And so it's like I had a little bit of that knowledge, but at the same time, I think there's this bigger picture that even though I was lucky enough to have a little bit of that, it's like it is a little bit hard for a 12-year-old to really comprehend what that means and like why people who are hurt other people and why misery loves company. And I think the other side of this is also, in addition to teaching our kids not to take things personally, I think it's also important to teach the kids who are being little buttheads, like, where is your behavior coming from? Like, I think that's the flip side of this. Of course, like, teach kids how to like better absorb this and better like comprehend it and break it down, but also teach kids where their lashing out behavior might come from and why they're saying things intended to make someone interpret something personally, I think would be really powerful too. And I actually, to kind of lead into the next question, I used Let Them to answer my question about if you could give your friends and listeners a piece of advice now from the 2025 books, what would that be? And I pulled on Let Them as well, but I said I said a little bit differently. I said, let people misunderstand you. It's their loss. Protect your energy and don't spend time justifying who you are. The right people won't need an explanation. So just a little bit of a different angle for the let them theory.
Well, I love that. Before we go to the next question, Noelle, I'd love to know if you had anything to say to what Jenna was just saying about how to approach also the child that's causing the pain. Because it's almost like she's right, right? We're talking about how do you bandage, how do you heal the situation, but perhaps also how do we help like stop it at the source and help the child that's wounded causing the pain to start with.
So often, the student that I'm working with using Love Six Actions is usually, for lack of better terms, the perpetrator or the initiator of the situation that landed them in the office. So that is typically who I'm talking to. And so I'm just walking them through the steps of understanding themselves and why they reacted the way they did. We have to be a little careful in the setting that we're in, because a lot of times it's a learned behavior, whether it's from home or somewhere else. So we just have to be a little gentle with that, to not blame what we think, but to allow the kid to bring up from within their thinking around those questions, but then being able to tie it back to forgiving ourselves. Those last couple questions that I ask the kids are the most powerful until they're able to look through the lens of the other person that was involved or the other people involved. I think that kids carry around a lot of shame and guilt because there's quick to punish versus that discipline, which means to teach. And so I feel like I come in with that discipline piece where let's talk about what happened so we can think about different ways to handle that, and to recognize we were angry and all emotions are okay. There's not one that's better than the other. It's what we do with it when we feel the emotion that can cause damage to ourselves or to others. So I just think that understanding themselves better is really important. And you can really touch on that when you're looking at through the lens of Love Six Actions and through the Four Agreements, because they're all interrelated.
You're really teaching how to become an emotional genius. And which is what Love Six Actions does, right? It's like, how do I understand what I'm feeling and experiencing, and then basically employ empathy and compassion within this reaction that I'm having.
Right. And for not for myself and for others. A
Mhm.
lot of times, I don't know, like when we're trying to repair relationships, it's focused on what you did to someone else, not necessarily what you did to yourself. So I feel like with Love Six Actions, you can like reflect back on how that impacted you too. Because a lot of times it's outward focused. And again, the real truth of our entire lives is our inner world, and that frames how we see the outer world. And so the more we can pull it back to us, yes, make amends where needed, but really pull it back so that we can make the internal changes as a kid and as an adult. I mean, in a little bit, I'll share a story this week where I didn't do so well in that category, but I'm getting better and better. And the faster I notice it, right? The other, just really regular, quickly, I wanted to touch base on generational empathy because, those of us that parented kids that are Jenna and Ashlyn's age are close to it. The consciousness of the planet at the time we were raising you, we were probably all doing the things that we were supposed to do to be the best parent we could be. We probably read the books, we did the things, but our consciousness on the planet right now is just massively different. And it's just growing faster and faster than it was when you guys were little. And so we were trying to do all those things. So to the people that have kids that are just, early adulthood, we have to give ourselves grace. We have to give ourselves grace because we were doing at the moment what we thought was the very best. And we were probably on the cusp of like the next change always. So that compassion and knowing that the next generation, Ashlyn and Jenna, you're going to be amazing parents because you have all of this consciousness and you're embodying it. How beautiful is that?
Amazing.
It really is unbelievable.
I'm loving this conversation. And since Jenna tagged us into our next question, let's go to that. If you could give your friends and the listeners a piece of advice for now from the 2025 books, what would that advice be? And Jenna, would you mind saying yours again? Because I thought it was really powerful and I didn't want to just skip over it.
Yeah, sure. So it was another take on the let them theory, but it was the idea of letting people misunderstand you. So people can paint a picture of you in whatever way they want that you don't have any control over. And I think oftentimes to use like the urge to merge, I tell Ashlyn to have that connectivity and community and the desire to be understood really is what it comes from, like convincing people of your worth. Let's stop doing that. And it's their loss, really. It's like, let them. It's their loss that they misunderstand you and that they are not letting you into their life or whatever the situation is. And by doing that, you're just protecting energy by stopping spending time justifying who you are because the right people won't need an explanation.
Love that. Noelle, I think you have a story to tell.
Well, I was going to say, Jenna, that was perfect. It rolls right into that experience. And that is the takeaway. Let them, don't take anything personally. It's never about you. So last week, we have a behavior meeting with myself and the mental health team and our administration. And on Monday, my principal asked us, and I think it was probably his wording because I surely took it personally, myself and the two counselors at my school. but we didn't know we took it personally until a few days later that we finally talked about it. And they're like, oh my gosh. Anyway, he said something along the lines of, the interventionists are asking how you spend your time. And to us, it felt very like integrity pushing. And I was like, and we all just left the meeting. I didn't know we all felt this way until later. So the next day I went to my principal and I said, if anybody, I was harsh because I took it personally. I didn't go through Love Six Actions. And I said to him, I expect you, if anybody ever questions my job, that you have my back. And I was kind of firm with him. So, but then, of course, does some harm to relationship. So I'm traveling for work. I'm going to a conference tomorrow with him. So I will be sure to communicate that I could have handled that in a kinder way and that I took it personally because I really, really, really try to embody that. I think the reason I was responsive in that way is it was somebody that I really felt like we had this really clear, open understanding of our jobs. He's the one that set up my role and that he didn't know what I was doing. It just took me back. So I've spent part of last week, really looking at that deeper, looking at any subconscious work I need to do around transforming that. But it goes back to let them have whatever opinion they'd like. And it doesn't matter to me because I just know. I know what I do and I know I do it well.
And that's a big, mature thing to be able to say. And that's the whole point because it's your job, right? Like, it's not like you're just saying, oh, the store clerk or this casual person didn't understand. This is someone that has agency over some of your life's circumstances. So that's a big one to say, just let them. But you're right. The outcome will be better by choosing to let them.
Yes. And Noelle, you did exactly what a self-aware person on the road to self-discovery does, which is, why did this trigger me so much? What is it within myself where I feel like someone's not valuing my work or my time? How do I believe that my work isn't valued or my time isn't valued? Because that's really probably
Right.
what the depth of the trigger was. Yes, let them is great. And most people in their journey aren't quite yet to where Noelle is on hers. And so I think hers was the next step in all of this.
Right. And I think part of it was I made assumptions, which goes with the four
Mhm.
agreements, right?
Yes.
I made assumptions that it meant A, B, and C, that he was questioning my integrity when that's probably not it at all. Well, I know it's not that. So, yeah. So it's just uncovering. So it's a perfect example for everyone when you're listening to this podcast. It's not like I can't speak for everyone on here. I don't have it all together, but I certainly will notice when I don't feel good because my goal is to feel at peace. And when something interrupts my peace, that is my opportunity to dig deeper and to release those beliefs or release something that's not true.
That's going to tie perfectly into my advice, which is originally what you brought to the table, Noelle, in the untethered soul, which is take out the thorn. So exactly what you're talking about, right? You're taking it from here's what happened, and now I got to figure out why this thorn is in here instead of building all these protective barriers. You're getting to the root. And just to do a quick recap of the whole take out the thorn concept from the untethered soul, he writes about how there is a thorn in your arm and it's affecting a nerve, right? And it's very painful and it hurts and it's a serious problem. It's difficult to sleep. It's hard to get close to people. Daily life is hard. You can't even go for a walk in the woods. This thorn is so painful, right? This could be so many different topics that you as a listener could be thinking, or any of us on this podcast, right? We each have a thorn. But the reality is that you can have two choices, right? You either make sure nothing touches it, which is you build these walls and these barriers and you keep people away from you, or Noelle, in your scenario, you could push your principal away. I don't want to be friends with him. I don't want to interact with him. Start shit talking. You could go the opposite, right? You create drama. You stage a coup.
You can block him, cut him out of your life.
But truly, or you can walk around with a chip on your shoulder all day long through school in huffing and puffing about, well, you did this and you did, justifying. Like, there's all these things you could do to protect that thorn. Or Michael Singer talks about the other option is to take it out because it's so painful and it's only going to keep causing you pain. He writes, believe it or not, the effects of the choice you make will determine the course of the rest of your life. And that is one of the reasons that I picked this. This is not a small topic. This is a big deal. If you continue to carry around these thorns, these things that have caused pain in your life, it will continue to affect the rest of your life. And I don't mean that lightly. And yes, we find ways to cope, but there are ways to actually overcome and heal and move forward and not just create a cage around the thorn.
And for the listener, if they really want, I think, to understand even more deeply what you're talking about, I would suggest you read Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution, because truly, I don't use that verbiage, but that's is about uncovering what those thorns are.
Exactly, because I think at some point, right, you have experiences you don't even realize what thorns you've internalized. You don't realize you've created such a cage around this thorn to keep it safe. You don't realize that you have no friends because back when you were 5, something terrible happened to you. Going back to the subconscious mind, the belief that it's not safe to have friends or that people don't like you. Fill in the blank, and then you spent the rest of your life trying to protect yourself through that subconscious belief. And here you are 40 years later, alone, isolated, and I don't know, obviously that's a bit of a flippant example. I'm giving you like a very broad stroke. I also think it's very real. I think we can all look in our lives and realize that we've created patterns and scenarios that really aren't optimal. It's created more pain in our life than peace, even though the intent was to create peace, which is ironic because he talks about protecting the problem becomes the problem itself. So unpacking all of this thorn talk, going back to what my mom also said, that's literally what we're here at Love Ignites Peace to do, is we're actually here to help you take out those thorns. From the book to our courses to this podcast, like we're trying to gently and lovingly provide you the ways to get rid of these thorns and in a sustainable way.
I love a thorn. You can take out your little thorns and put them in a jar and just realize how far you've come in all your life. In answering to this question and listening to each of you, for me and my personal observation, all of this circles around how to set boundaries, understanding what boundaries are. They're not to keep people out. They're not protect the thorn. I'm so proud of you. I love like our talks and how we share. You used your voice. You even shared, if I'm remembering correctly from a few nights, there was a moment where that wasn't easy to go into your principal and to speak your voice. That's a boundary that you set. You were teaching in that moment, not only him in that highest position, but all the people that you work with, how to treat you, what your expectations are, and how you will move and connect in a loving way your boundaries. I look at each one of these. The 4 agreements is about boundaries, teaching us in a personal way a boundary. Let them is all about boundaries. That's what the book is about. Love Ignites Peace. 6 actions are teaching us in a loving way in these steps how to set boundaries for ourselves. Every single book, Atomic Habits, you think they're all about a habit? That is setting up a pattern of showing how you want to be treated and what is important and how you walk your life, how you walk that talk. So for me, that common denominator of all of these is boundaries, how we walk this life and how we teach people to treat us, because it's how we treat ourselves. That for me is the core and the thread of all these books that tied together.
So I think that's a really beautiful point. And Noelle, I'd love to hear your thoughts because you were just saying that you actually didn't like what you went in and said to the principal. If I'm understanding correctly, you wish you maybe wouldn't have done that.
I actually don't regret the conversation. I just felt like maybe there's more to be said. Maybe there was some part that wasn't clear, and maybe it was the way he said it. But I also, for me personally, I don't want to give my peace away to anything outside of me, because outside of me is just a reflection of how I view myself internally. So what I see on the outside is just reflected back of how I view myself internally. I do feel like I needed to remind him of his role. As Teresa was saying, he is the one that set up my job. And if he can't communicate to it, that is not my responsibility. But I did want to remind him, as the leader of our school, I do expect him to have my back.
And Teresa, your point about boundaries, I think was beautiful. I just wanted to tie that together to make sure that made sense to everyone listening.
Ashlyn, to kind of tie it back to your question, the part of me that I want to make sure we work together. I respect him still. And I just want to make sure I didn't leave him with this idea that that's respect is not there. Does that make sense? So that's kind of that love six action, seeing through him, being able to look at him through those same actions as well.
Yes, you're definitely seeking understanding instead of going straight to judgment. Yes, beautiful. Well, I will wrap this last question up with my answer. These books that we read this year, no matter where you are on your journey, I think have pieces of nuggets to take away. If you are really just beginning your journey, then Let Them may be a really incredible book for you. The Four Agreements may be a really incredible book for you. And I think each of us here, I don't know for a fact, but I mean, I know I read The Four Agreements. That book did not have the impact on me 25 years ago that it had this year. I attempted to read Untethered Soul, which I did, whatever that was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It did not have the impact on me that it had this year because we all are at different places in our journey and we all have certain things we need to hear when we hear them. We can't force ourselves ahead in that process. And so the point I'm trying to make is a book like Let Them. That could be the most helpful advice to someone at the very beginning of their journey of trying to create better interpersonal relationships. So, my advice or what I would suggest for readers, for listeners, continue down that path of self discovery. Continue down that path of continuing to be self aware. Go back and visit things that were meaningful to you, but maybe not quite as meaningful as they might be now. Allow yourself a chance to grow through these books, through these conversations. And I think one of the big themes that we've talked about here tonight is really don't allow yourself, I'm going to put these in my words, but don't allow yourself to be controlled by limitations. Whether that's what someone told you and you took it personally and it created a thorn, or a belief that you're carrying around with you for some other reason.
I love it. So let's take us out then from all these beautiful points that were just made. I want to re listen to this podcast and be re inspired all over again. I feel like I haven't even fully unpacked all the wisdom that's been shared. So I hope everyone listening feels the same. And I invite you to take a second listen if you feel so called. But to close us out, what is your one favorite quote from all the books that we've read this year? So we're going to go around and each share our one favorite quote. Jenna, would you like to start?
Yeah, I wrote down a handful. That was too hard. And some of them were, I did audiobooks. Some of them were Kindle expired. So I did my best. Kindle from the library app. So I did my best. There was a couple I pulled from Love Ignites Peace. Peace is a frequency you tune into, not a circumstance you wait for. And then this one's from Untethered Soul, which honestly I think ties back to more of the conversations we had, which Paige, you know how much I loved Love Ignites Peace, but we talked about it just last podcast, so I didn't want to be overbearing on that. Your thoughts are just visitors. Let them come and let them go. What you cling to becomes your cage. What you release becomes your liberation. Notice the voice, but don't become the voice. And that's from Untethered Soul.
I love those both. Noelle or Teresa?
I can share mine. So I have two. One is from The Four Agreements, and it is nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. And I mean, obviously, both of these quotes go directly to the things we've been talking about tonight. And also from Untethered Soul, to attain true inner freedom, you must be able to objectively watch your problems instead of becoming lost in them.
Teresa?
Okay. I know it was hard because there's such meaty little nuggets. For me, when I repeat things, I like to try to keep it like 3 words. If you're going to quote something, because that'll stick. So one is short, and I'm going to do another one if I can get your permission. It's kind of long. The first one, and I think it's so important, and it encompasses our whole being. Be impeccable with your word. Your words create your world.
Mic drop.
And then this one's a little longer, and it was from Let Them. But I think the reason I like that book is she resonates in her tone. I can be pretty direct sometimes. And, if you're going to put it out there, I'm going to ask you, where are we going with this? So I really resonated with her tone of Let Them. So if they want to leave, let them. If they don't see your value, let them. If they don't show up for you, let them. If they don't love you the way you deserve, let them. Let them go and make room for those who will.
Yay. Beautiful.
Yeah, that was another great one. I love that we all love that we all have more than one because we obviously loved everything and we're empowered women that say, I appreciate the suggestion for one quote, but I'm going to show up with several and I'm going to own my space and my truth and my power. And here I am. So
We are not a group of rule followers, are we?
I love it. I love it because I too have two. Just we're so far 4 out of 5 on 2, and we'll see what you land with, PG Poo. But my 2 are one I've already said, but have to say it again from Atomic Habits. You do not fall to your goals, you fall to your systems. Go out there and create those systems. I'm ad-libbing that part, but you don't fall to your goals, you fall to your systems. And then I wanted to do one from Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution, which is to change the collective consciousness, you must change your individual consciousness first. And I think, again, that's what we're all doing here, right? We are all working on our consciousness. We're all working on basically raising our vibration, becoming more conscious beings, and changing our life and in turn the world around us.
Well, I only did pick one. I know, crazy. But the reason I picked this one really was not so much of like the profound impact that this had on me. The reason I picked this one quote was because to me it felt like why we do this book club podcast. And it was from Untethered Soul. The spiritual journey is one of constant transformation. In order to grow, you must give up the struggle to remain the same and learn to embrace change at all times, which is why we read these books, which is why we have these conversations, which is why we're having a year in review.
And you are a little emotional about that quote. Would you
I
like
know,
to
it's kind
elaborate?
of weird, isn't it?
Would you like to elaborate?
I think it just really touches me. We truly are on a journey of constant transformation. And instead of resisting that transformation, embrace it. Like Noelle said earlier, I don't regret anything. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't want to give my younger self, necessarily different advice because everything I have been through has created the person that I am today. But it's also through that constant transformation and peeling back those layers that you are where you are today as well.
Which is going to take us in this perfect lead in to close out the podcast, which is you did write this in your book, Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution. And it's this quote from Albert Einstein where he says, our problems cannot be solved from the same mindset that created them. And again, that is what this is podcast and this Love Ignites Peace journey is all about. We desire something more than what we're currently experiencing in our own lives, in the collective, in the lives of those that we love and other people we care about. And we know that we cannot solve our problems from the same consciousness that created them to begin with. So here we are exploring, seeking, leaning into the maybes to get to these something more as we're asking the whys, and we're changing our lives in the world. And it's a beautiful thing. And if you're listening and you're tuning in, you're one of those people that are absolutely participating in this experience, and you are making the world a better place just by listening to this podcast. So I hope you feel very, very good about that. And on that note, this is the last episode of season 4. So we will catch you on season 5 in the new year in 2026. And we have some really exciting things coming up. We are obviously continuing with our lovely book club chat, but we will also be returning to general podcasting. So you will be able to hear some of our hot takes, just PG Poo and I, as well as some incredible guests that we have lined up. And I'm going to say tune in to the first episode, season 6, episode 1 in 2026 to hear the theme that we're really rolling with our Love Ignites Peace focus and journey for the year 2026.
And 6 in numerology is the number of the heart.
Hecky doodle do. What a time. It sounds pretty aligned. So if you're here for some good alignment, I would say tune back in, and we cannot wait to chat. It's crazy to think in the new year.
I know. Thank you so much for joining us this year. We so appreciate you all, the listeners. We appreciate our little book club podcast here. Thank you so much, ladies. It is a pleasure and a joy to have these conversations with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So with that, get your freak on.
And as always, I'm sending you love from my heart to yours.